I spread out, sorry.
Yeah, I see that.
All right, good evening. I'll call the regular Board of Education meeting of February 26th, 2025 to order. I have 7 p.m. and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening. Mr. Secretary, could you take the roll, please?
Sure, Mr. Green. Mr. Sunnyberger,
Here.
Mr. Powers,
Here.
Ms. Berkmeyer, Mr. Vinatelli,
Here.
Mr. Richards is here, Ms. Knox,
Here.
and Mr. Green.
Here. We have a quorum. We'll begin with board appreciation. I believe Miss Kenward is somewhere out there. There she is. Welcome. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Jankowski, Board of Education, and Mr. Farley. Tonight is a very special night for us because we get to thank all of our board members and let you know how much we appreciate you. We are the best school district in Macomb County because we have a Board of Education and a superintendent that works together to support our students, staff, and community. Thank you. So you have many gifts in front of you. So I'm going to walk you through your wonderful gifts. So you have a special edition Yeti in front of you, Anchor Bay Yeti. And you also, in your gift bag, you have 2 Anchor Bay shirts. And you also have a CTE Black portfolio as well. And inside of the portfolio, you will find a thank you note from all of our CTE teachers and myself, thanking all of you for all the support that you do for our 17 programs. You have a trinket from Mrs. Sheraton's Makerspace class. You have personalized notebooks from our graphic arts students. And you have an apple pie made from scratch from our culinary arts students. Right now, we're going to have 2 performances, one from McCants Elementary and one from Middle School South.
Face me. Face me. Taller friends in the front, or in the back. Good evening, board. Mr. Jankowski. My Macon students have 2 songs for you. These are our 3rd and 4th graders. We're going to sing a song called In This World Together and the Anchor Bay Fight Song. And I would like to, on behalf of all of Anchor Bay electives and elementary specialist teachers, thank you for the support that you give our growing children being able to experience so many wonderful different opportunities.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Dan Fenton. I'm the band director over at Middle School South. Thank you to all of you for the amazing support that you guys give us in the band program. On behalf of the band program, just thank you for allowing our kids to perform. Or thank you, Sherry, for setting this up. We really appreciate you. And this is Anna Gillespie and Elijah Aguilero. These are two 7th grade students who also did a performance for MSBOA Solo and Ensemble, received a Division I rating, which is the top rating that you can receive, and they will be performing today Green Sleeves. Thank you so much.
We will be taking a short pause after the board appreciation for those of you that want to get your children home. We know it's a school night. and we are greatly appreciative for our Macon singers and our future Tara that was out there that was upset she wasn't up there. I want to see her in a couple of years. Middle School South as well for bringing their instruments. They sounded pretty good. I have zero musical talent, so unless it involves pounding a hammer on a drum, I would not be able to do anything to make any kind of musical inclination. So thank you again. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I will make the motion.
Well, it looks like we might be going.
Second.
Oh, there we go. Motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Powers. Any comments, questions, or concerns? All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on your agenda to Mr. Farley for a Student Congress update. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the Board of Education and Superintendent Jankowski. At today's meeting, we took a field trip to the Board of Education room to view where the board meetings are held. We also toured the HR offices, and Mrs. Gonzalez showed us the fingerprinting system and fingerprinted anyone who wanted to be printed. Everyone really seemed to enjoy the fingerprinting. I have the following building updates to share with you this evening. All the elementary 4th and 5th grade students took a trip to the high school for a band performance. Lighthouse is hosting an eyeglass donation drive for the Lions Club. The class with the most donation will get an extra recess. Currently collecting no-sew blankets for pediatric patients at children's hospitals. Donations are being accepted through February 28th. This week is the book fair, which ends on Friday. 5th grade students had a lesson in figurative language, and everyone had a dress like an idiom. At Lottie, 4th and 5th graders are voting on what animal to adopt at the Detroit Zoo. American Heart Association Jump Rope for Heart was held earlier this month. There was a school-wide science assembly on February 5th, which was paired with a family science night. At Great Oaks, there was a school-wide Super Bowl vote for which team would win the big game. The school voted for the Eagles. Donuts with Dad was held on February 11th and 12th. The book fair was last week. A school-wide yo-yo assembly was held on February 3rd, and students were able to purchase their own yo-yos. At McCont's, Quarter Wars raised over $4,000. A glow dance was held earlier this month, and the students had a lot of fun. March is Reading Month. Activities will begin soon to include Flashlight Fridays. Student Council sponsored a Valentine's fundraiser selling $147 worth of Valentine's Day grams. At Ashley, Student Council is hosting a fundraiser candy sucker sale, which ends Friday. Proceeds will be used to purchase indoor recess games for the classrooms. The school science fair was held yesterday along with family math night, which was a huge success. Donuts with Dudes was February 20th. At Nuldrit, the Star Walkathon with fundraiser was held on February 12th. Thank you to Renee the Fortis Guard for making the amazing balloon arch decorations. The book fair will be March 3rd to 7th. Buddy's Pizza Dine and Donate fundraiser will be March 6th. The second grade music program will be on March 10th. A Spencel's sale was held the week of February 3rd, and 997 Spencels were sold. That's a toughie. At Middle School North, March 3rd, the Honor Society will be sponsoring an eyeglass donation drive. Glasses can be dropped off for donation in the main office. January 31st was the annual dodgeball tournament. The winners were an 8th grade team named the Pink Ponies. Students are preparing for March Wellness Week with a core skill as the focus of each day. At Middle School South, a Penny Fund Wars fundraiser was held for the victims of the California wildfires, which raised $150. February 21st, there was a rock, paper, scissors tournament with 8th grader Colt as the overall winner. Today was the student of the month breakfast. 44 of the 7th and 8th grade students visited the CTE classes at the high school today. At the high school, this week is Charity Week with all proceeds going to Canines for Warriors. The mock trial competition is this Saturday. Members of Student Council attended the statewide Student Council Conference in Grand Rapids last weekend. There were over 2,000 students statewide who attended. Tomorrow evening is the annual Relay for Life night at the Oscars fundraiser. March 11th is the scholarship basketball game. Tickets are $5 and everyone is welcome to attend. With JROTC, they are preparing for the headquarters inspection on April 2nd, which the board is invited to come see the drill performance. And you guys are also invited to the military ball on Saturday, May 17th at Cedar Glen Golf Course at 6 p.m. Thank you. That's all I have for this evening.
That's actually quite a lot. I do have some follow-ups. You're not going to have to hook that early. And if anyone else knows the answer to this, what's a Spencel? A scented pencil. Maybe I'm a little out of touch there, Miss Kenward. All right. Quarter races, $4,000. What's a quarter race? What do you do with your quarter? Somebody must know.
They collect you basically donate a bunch of quarters in whatever class, grade, however they want to divvy it up.
Oh, that's $4,000. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, if it follows what they normally do, like the penny wars, if you put a quarter in, it's positive. But if somebody puts paper money in, it subtracts from the other thing.
Oh,
So you can compete by grade, and then that way, whoever has the most. So if you can support yours by putting quarters, or you can put paper money in to deduct from the other groups.
got it. Okay. And I was at the dodgeball at Middle School North that Friday night, and I've never seen so many parents so excited for 6th graders to try to pulverize 8th graders. There was probably 500 people in the stands, all pulling for the 6th grade teams, and they're obviously substantially smaller than the 8th grade teams. And they beat a couple of the 8th grade teams a couple of times. So there were some upset 8th grade parents in the stands. But that was interesting to watch. That's my 2nd or 3rd year getting out to that. But
It's great.
anybody other comments before?
I do have two. You mentioned that the ROTC inspection is on April 2nd and we're invited to the inspection.
To the drill performance, yes.
And that is at what time?
I do not have a turn time.
Okay. And then the military ball was May
17th.
17th.
That's Cedar Glen.
changing it up this year.
Yes. 6 p.m.
6 p.m. All right. Fantastic.
And
Thank
then the
you.
other highlight is obviously the scholarship fundraiser. You said was March 11.
Yes.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Mr. Farley. Moving on, our agenda, we have a CT Outstanding Students Recognition, and then we'll be back over to Ms. Kenward.
Good evening again. Every year we choose two of our top outstanding CTE students. And as you all know, we have a lot of CTE students. So the two this year that won, we went to a breakfast with Mr. Jankowski, Mr. McDonald, myself, and Mr. McKenzie on February 6th. So they were honored at the ISD. So right now I'm going to have Mr. Yono introduce our two top CTE students.
All right, good evening, board and Superintendent Jankowski and Mr. Farley. As Kennard said, I'm Jacob Yono, and I'm one of the faculty members at the high school in the business and technology pathway. And so, as she mentioned, these students earlier this month were recognized at the 35th Annual Macomb Career and Technical Education Administrators Association Awards celebration that was held at the MISD. And these students' achievements were celebrated by policymakers, administrative teachers, and peers from all over Macomb County. So I'd first like to present Senior Lily Leiden, who is recognized in the Department of Graphic Arts. Lily excels in the Advanced Graphic Arts program as a fourth-year student at the high school. Lily consistently demonstrates an exceptional level of talent, creativity, and dedication. Every assignment she undertakes reflects her unwavering commitment to excellence. She delivers always 110%. Beyond her technical skills, Lily exhibits a genuine passion for graphic design and an eagerness to embrace new challenges. She is not only a talented artist, but also an inspiring student who sets a high standard for herself and her peers. Lily's extraordinary work ethic, innovative mindset, and dedication to her craft make her an outstanding representative of what this award celebrates. Lily plans on attending St. Clair County Community College to pursue a career in illustrating children's books. Congratulations, Lily. And next, I'm proud to present Senior Lily Foster, who is recognized in the Department of Business Management. Lily Foster is one of our most passionate CTE students at the high school. She's a true testament to the power of career exploration in CTE, taking over 5 business-related classes over the years. Lily is currently the president of our DECA chapter, where we have over 115 members. Lily is a deeply committed, strong leader, positive role model, and high achiever. Lily's strongest characteristic is her ability to connect with her peers while fostering relationships. This year, Lily has worked tirelessly on fund development for DECA, and additionally, she has been innovative with her approach to spread our chapter's mission and expand our community and local business partnerships. Lily is a DECA district and state champion and an international competitor. She plans to attend Oakland University in the fall while pursuing a degree in marketing. I'm also proud to add that at this year's award banquet, Lily was the recipient of the Haynes Family Fund Scholarship. Lily is a true champion for CT and business at the high school. Congratulations, Lily. So Lily, we want to again congratulate you on these outstanding achievements. And on behalf of all of us in CTE at the high school, I want to thank you for the work that you do that continues to advance CTE in our school district each day. So congratulations again. And if board, if you wouldn't mind, if we can grab a photo with
We'd
the
love to
award
have
recipients.
Lily squared on the stage.
Yeah.
Congratulations to our CTE students, not only the two that are here tonight, but all of them. They do a fabulous job and they're a passionate group. And Ms. Kenworth, thank you for what you do with that passionate group of people. Moving on down, a superintendent's update is next on the list. Without further ado, Mr. Jankowski.
Okay, Tim is pulling up my presentation. So just going to run through the bond. This is a picture of the latest picture of the restaurant, the seating area. It's really coming along very nice. When this was first shared, I was like, well, this is just a rendering. And they're like, no, look at the ladder that they're working on it. This is the real seating area. So next slide. This is just same thing from different angles. We are waiting for, on the left-hand side where it says Shoreliner, to the right, there will be the logo will be there. And it's really coming along very nicely. Next slide. This is in the kitchen. Most of the equipment is in. They're just going through testing to make sure everything's kind of connected correctly, operating, and so on. Next slide. This is an example of the bathrooms. We've been working on the bathrooms. So they replaced the hardware in the bathrooms, and they're in the process of just updating those to make sure that everything's in operating order. And it wasn't a whole overhaul because the tile was in pretty good shape, but it's mostly the mechanical items. And we're hoping that we'll see energy efficiency and also less water usage as part of that. Next slide. This is the athletic wing. This used to be the athletic office, but if you recall, we flipped the athletic office more towards the south entrance. That is not the floor. It's covered right now because they're working on the ceiling. This will be the classroom that would then, to the right, will be the expanded weight room. And so that is coming along as well. They should have the ceiling in there in the next few weeks. And then they'll start working once really spring break. They should start moving the weight room and then on to that next phase of that wing. Next slide. Again, just different angles from the same thing, just so you kind of see the paint is done. They're just waiting on the ceiling. Next slide. And again, this is the same area, just the fixtures are going in. There's cabinets and so on that they'll have in each of those areas. Next slide. And then this is actually in the current weight room, which will be the wrestling room. So there'll be a small office. This will be used for when they're weighing people and they needed a private area. So they were able to get that over midwinter break. That was installed as well. And then this is our boiler project that they've been working on. So that has been mostly installed. There's also the chiller, which is on the outside that they're working on. That is, I think, 95% complete, but that is still in process, but it's really coming along a lot smaller than what we used to have. Next slide. This was a challenge when they first put all of the equipment in the building. There was a whole thing when we had now 20 some years later to upgrade. All of that was in there, and they would have to actually take out walls. Like the first year when I was here, they were in the process of changing another boiler, and they had to physically take out a wall, then put the boiler in, then they were closing that up. Now we just put a bay door in, so then we won't have to do that every time that we're moving this large equipment out. Next slide. This is actually from the next phase. This is the middle school. This is middle school north. This is standing at one end. Looking down, this would be the northwest corner. This used to be a series of classrooms, so now they've opened that up because we're basically taking small classrooms that were about 680, 670 square feet, making them just shy of 1,000 square feet. Next slide. Again, this is just the same work that's going on with that. So part of that is they have to move entrances to doors. Next slide. And again, just it's the same thing. They're just kind of looking at what they took out, and they're getting ready to now put the dividing walls back in for the larger classrooms. Next slide. Just another shot of this, I believe, used to be counseling. So there's a bunch of different walls in there. So now that's been opened up as well. Next slide. This is from the hallway. So this is looking west from that wing. So on the left-hand side, those will be new science labs. And then There will be the last classroom on the right is life skills, and then there will be 3 classrooms to the immediate right, and they'll all be much larger than what we had before. Next slide. And then this is the entrance. Again, just kind of rebuilding. This used to be, this would be the entrance this is actually at the end of the hallway where the science lab would be. Next slide. And again, just another shot of kind of where they're at. They're getting ready to, with the saw cutting and everything in order to make sure that utilities are where they need to be for the new rooms. Next slide. This was an interesting one kind of coming in. Every building, especially of that era, has a vault. And when they said it's a vault, it is a real vault. There's about 8 inches of concrete surrounding that. And it had the old giant size door and it's something when you get in to actually tear it out, they said they hadn't really seen this in other districts because normally you have the vault door, but it's not 8 inches of concrete that's above it. So something they came across, but they were able to take that out as well. Next slide. And again, as part of all of this, we have our students in their construction trades get to every other week. They meet with the Barton Mallow team. They walk them through the project. They talk about these are problems that we ran into. These are problems that here's how we're handling it. Here's how we're staging it. So they get to kind of work with the guys. And then they also give input. They will kind of talk to them about things. What would you like to see here? And then we use that to kind of help shape the project. Next slide. Just last thing is basically we're going to do our annual bond update. That's on Monday, March 10th. And so we will part of that will be a tour of the high school after the bond update. And we'll go over all the projects, timelines, things like that, just to kind of give everybody progress on where we're at. Just people always ask right now, we've just about used about 11 or 12% of the bond funds. So we are ahead of budget, ahead of schedule. And we're making great progress, and I think you'll see the rest of the high school stuff will wrap up over the summer, be ready for fall. And then the middle school north we got a jump start on that. That will also be ready for fall. Questions?
Ahead of budget, under budget, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we
All
are. Okay.
Phil,
Yes.
you mentioned, or I'm sorry, you didn't mention anything, but I was just thinking as you're going through the slides, the fire drill at the high school or the fire alarm went off. Can you just give us a little update on where we are with that?
Yeah. So the fire alarm, basically they were outside working on installing the chiller. That triggered the alarm. And then basically what happens is now with modern sprinkler systems, they're not always pressurized. So then it has to pressurize the system. There's something called a flow monitor, and that wasn't registering that the flow was appropriate. So then it gave a trouble signal. So then it wouldn't let us reset it. We had to have, basically the fire department said, no, we know it's pressurizing. And so you can still have that. We had to get it replaced essentially. And so they replaced that. And so we held events until about 5 o'clock. Then we did we moved the band concert to north, and then we moved the basketball games later, and we were able to get officials in to have both of those. And then, so they replaced it and we're good to go.
Anybody else? Any questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Moving on to item H, hearing in the public. Those who wish to address the board on agenda items may complete a brief request stating their name, address, and the subject of their comments. Remarks about specific employees should be directed to them personally and not included in the public forum. Administration will follow up with concerns within 48 hours of the board meeting. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes per board policy. I will start with Sarah. I want to say the last name, Wunderlich.
a daughter in traditional Spears preschool and on behalf of we are upset and concerned that the offering for fall five is not yet. And I want to preface by saying I understand this is only based on rumors at this point. So what we're hearing though is that there's consideration to only offer the GSRP here at McDonald's. And I would just say that if there were major changes for district preschool offerings, I would expect and hope that this would have been discussed and decided with ample time for us to make other arrangements or considerations as many other people. The reason being because this expanded eligibility and structure changes model for GSRP has been known about and budget. My concern really is McDonald's is the farthest from the district from me, 17 minutes, 18 minutes from my house stop traffic, and many of us are not ready to send our little 3 and 4-year-old school full time that far, especially when we have plans to send additional preschool at UC. I will not be busing my kids that far, especially or and it's inconvenient to drive over 30 minutes a day. Just not something I plan to have to do until. So, you know, that being said, with the new parents and the young kids, I ask that the representatives consider this when making critical decisions or changes. It makes me not feel excited to go to the district, K through 12, if you know these things are made to last minute. We feel a little bad. In closing, again, it's based on assumptions, but if it is being considered, consider preschool, at least for the 25 to 26 years, we give parents notice. I don't want to have to work with preschool, but again, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask the board tonight, probably twice, to allow me to kind of break our protocol. And I'm going to apologize to Superintendent Jankowski. Are you prepared to address that now?
I can basically tell you the funding for the GSRP program and all of that from the state was just 1 year. So the governor wants to continue those programs and all that. So it really depends on what the state budget, how that kind of comes out. Once we know, and we'll talk about this during the legislative update, but once we know where the House is at, and they should release theirs. So the governor's giving her state of the state tonight. So I would imagine the House will have their budget out. We'll have a clearer picture on what exactly that we're offering. We will have programs at ECC and McDonald. It's just, we don't know exactly what that will be based off of, and how those numbers will break out based off of whether the state decides to continue to fund preschool. It is in the governor's budget that they're going to fund all of these things. And so then there's ramifications that kind of come with that. And so once we kind of have that, we'll know. So I'm hoping, typically the governor gave her budget, I think 2 weeks ago it was. So typically within 3 weeks or 4 weeks, the House usually has that. My one concern is they don't seem to be looking to have it done by July 1st. That's usually when our budget year starts. So we want to know that. So I know there are some people that are like, well, we can take until October because that's when the state budget starts. So, but if they follow the same thing, as soon as we have the House like budget, because that's the major, you know, it's each party will have theirs out there. We'll have a very good idea, and then we'll plan accordingly.
So without pinning you down, you're hoping in the next 30 days-ish?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, sir. I have 3 people who want to speak on the same issue. So in alphabetic order, Megan Blankhorn. Absolutely. Is it not on?
I am here to bring attention to the horrific assault that took place on my son's birthday, February 19th at Anchor Bay versus Lands Cruise hockey game. However, what should have been a night of celebration with his friends turned into a nightmare when my son was viciously attacked by 7 Lands Cruise students out in the front doors of the arena. Evan has never been in trouble. He is a kind, respectful kid that has never caused trouble and doesn't have a confrontational bone in his body. He was just simply there to watch the game, hang out with his friends for his birthday, and support his high school hockey team. That night, after celebrating a quick birthday with him so he could get to his friends in the hockey game, he arrived at the hockey game at 7:39. At 9:32, I received a horrifying phone call from my son telling me that he had been jumped by 7 students from LC, and he thought that his nose might be broken and he wasn't sure what else. He was sitting in his car injured with a few friends around him. There was no adults, no security, nothing anywhere. I was on the road by 9:34, 2 minutes later, immediately calling 911. What deeply troubles me is that I was the first person to call 911. I live 20 minutes away from the hockey arena, despite the fact that my son was assaulted right outside the hockey arena. Where is the security? Where is the help? Where was the staff? At 9:43, Evan was still bleeding and in shock in his car. He then decided to re-enter the arena with his friends escorting him to clean his face up. Only then was he offered any kind of assistance. I arrived around 9:50, just as emergency responders pulled in. The timeline alone highlights the grave failure in student safety. My son's head was punched repeatedly. His head was kicked repeatedly, and there are videos, multiple videos. Evan's assault stemmed from a minor accidental bump into one of the LC students. Despite apologizing, saying, sorry, I didn't mean to, they still kept heckling him and then even shoved him. He proceeded to walk away and went into the lobby and met up with his friends. They waited a little bit and then went to the doors to exit to go to their cars to leave. The group of kids were there waiting for them. They even tried to go around them and out separate doors farthest away from them. Once they got out those doors, that's when they all chased after them. Evan, there are some security failures. Evan actively tried to avoid confrontation by using a different exit. Nobody was there watching any of it. The assault occurred directly in front of the hockey rink entrance. No security personnel was present to prevent the stop or attack. No staff members called 911 or provided assistance to my son. It took 15 minutes before an adult at a venue even intervened to give him medical help or even call 911. If not for the 3 brave students who stepped in, pulling the attackers off my son while being struck themselves, this could have been fatal. This could have been him in the ICU. We'd be having a totally different conversation. The videos were captured. They have been sent to the high school. And I'm sure every student and parent has seen them. Evan's injuries include severe concussion. He has not been back to school. He's still out because every time he opens his eyes and he's under the light, his headache keeps persisting. He has multiple soft tissue contusions on his head, bruising and swelling on both ears in the right side of his face, significant facial injuries, including damage around his cheek, eyes, and mouth, internal bleeding, and a bloody nose and lip. These injuries were not minor. The brutality of this attack has left my son not only physically injured, but also emotionally traumatized. The long-term effects of this assault are yet to be determined. And all of this occurred simply because he attended a school sporting event. I call for immediate action. This security failure demands immediate attention. I can't even say the word, failure of student safety demands immediate and concrete action. An explanation for why no security was present at a school sporting event, an investigation into why no staff members called emergency service until the student told them his mom called. Mandatory security personnel at all school events on or off campus. It is a school hockey game. A full review of emergency response protocols for incidents involving student safety, accountability for both the attackers and the failures that enabled this assault. The fact that this occurred at a school-sponsored event is unacceptable. No parent should send their child to a school game only to have them return bloody and traumatized. No student should have to rely on their friends' brave interventions to prevent critical injury. I demand immediate concrete changes to ensure that no other family has to experience what mine has endured. Our children's safety is not optional. This is every parent's worst nightmare. No student should ever experience what my son went through at a school event, especially to top it off at his birthday. The district has the responsibility to protect the students both on and off campus during school affiliated activities. I demand answers. I demand action. Our children's safety is not optional. It's your responsibility.
Thank you. Moving, how about Megan now? Okay. Okay.
Probably don't even need to go after a meeting plan. My name is Erica Schaefer. I'm an Anchor Bay graduate, class of 92, so been around a long time. The disappointment of not having security at an event like this isn't the first time. It would be different if something of this nature has been unforeseen or hasn't happened in the community. We have videos of the games happening last season where Dakota was jumping kids and things of these natures are happening outside of even our hockey games. I know it's part of MHSAA's requirements that there is sufficient security and staffing at events, and it just seems it's not happening. Hockey games are very aggressive. They get very passionate, and all the students from both schools go out at the same time. So my son was involved twice, obviously not to the extent of Amy's son, but he was one of the few that was there that night with him. And notice, no parents around, no teachers, no adult supervision to help when these kids are attacking like that. If there weren't a few kids stepping in, it would have been a different matter of that evening, and it should not have escalated to this. We should have protocols in place for events. Any basketball game, football game, my kids are in many sports. There's always security at all of these events. I get they're on property, but because they're off property doesn't mean it's still not a school event, right? The school has a responsibility with that ice rink to make sure these kids are safe and to make sure at the ends of the games that the kids aren't all exiting at the same time. So those are my concerns as a parent. This shouldn't happen.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Megan Blankhorn. I am also an Anchor Bay graduate, class of 1994. My youngest son was with Evan and Casey. He is a junior. My oldest son was on the ice that night. I'd like to point out that these 7 kids who aren't just LCN kids, the L'Anse Creuse United team make up L'Anse Creuse North, and Richmond. All of the students who were at the game that night were at L'Anse Creuse's next game. The administration from the other school didn't even stop them from going to the next games, which should never have happened. The hockey team has been asking for security at their games for at least 7 years that I know of. My oldest graduated in 2021, and we have been going to hockey games since then, and there are parents on the hockey team that have students who graduated back then. I know it has been an issue and an ongoing issue for at least 7 years. The team manager on a regular basis, when she is in the school, because she works with the athletic department, lets the school know when there are major rivalry games. This doesn't happen at all the games. It's always Dakota, L'Anse Creuse North, Romeo, but honestly, it usually almost always happens at a Dakota game or a L'Anse Creuse game.
when the students are there and it is an Anchor Bay where it is a this is a conference game and it is a non-conference game, parents are security. They're not trained in security. We have to hope that our parents know what they're doing. We're really lucky that we do have one parent who is also a police officer. So we have some of our parents who are really great at being security. We have some parents who really just don't know what to do or how to handle the students, and the kids kind of get away with murder. And I don't mean that literally, obviously, but it's hard. You have parents literally managing the situation. That night, Romeo had responsibilities. It was teenagers taking tickets and 2 parents that was there. Apparently, the AD was also there. I don't know what their AD or their super or anyone would look like. From our school, we had the assistant AD and the AD, who I was told left at some point. And then from L'Anse Creuse United, there was no one that anyone knows of that was actually in attendance. There are actual rules of how many people and security officers, it doesn't have to be actual security officers there. This was a major issue last year at the Dakota game where I believe almost 10 students from Dakota were then suspended from school. None of the Anchor Bay kids were, none of the Utica kids were. That was an issue. So we thought after all the things that happened last year, sheriff was then showing up at all the big games that would not continue this year. However, it did. When I go to basketball games, I'm a sports booster. I volunteer at a lot of games. When I go to a basketball game, visually, I see our superintendent, our principal, multiple assistant principals, security officers, and the sheriff. At a hockey game, our assistant AD is always there, and that is the most that I have ever seen at a game this year. In previous years, we have other administration there. This year, we get the assistant AD. That's the help that we get. At a basketball game on campus, there are more than we would need. Now, sometimes the security officers do come to our games. It's of their own free will on their time because they enjoy hockey. So we ask that there's more security for not only the safety of our parents who could end up in legal issues because they're having to be security. And the hockey team and the hockey parents pay for a lot. Our children drive themselves to all of their games, including Ann Arbor, Fenton, Flint. Sometimes we go up north and our kids are driving to these games. Our parents have designed and built our own locker room, and we paid for that out of our own funds. We also pay for all of our own roughing, and we pay for our ice time. We're asking for something as very simple as security. This is a known issue, and it has been a known issue for a long time. So that is all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. I will again ask the boards for forgiveness here to kind of address this. And I can tell you, as a board, I've had conversations independently with several of the board members up here, and you can all feel free to speak as well. We as a district don't tolerate this type of behavior from our students, and we expect more from those we're competing against. I played high school sports. I remember how intense they were. And it's just not acceptable what happened. The board is upset. The board is upset by it. I can tell you that from talking to each one of the members. And Superintendent Jankowski and our Director of Security is upset about what's transpired. There are some challenges that come with where that game is. Specifically, it's in a different county than our high school is. It's certainly in a different municipality than, either New Baltimore or Chesterfield or, the Macomb, St. Clair County Sheriff that handles the rest of our SRO duties. So it's a bit of a challenge for us to figure out how to handle that. That doesn't excuse what happened. And as a district, we need to figure out how we get around those barriers to protect our students, because that's our number one job here, is to educate and protect. So I'm going to apologize again, Superintendent Jankowski, but I'm putting you back on the hot seat. Where are we at with any type of investigation and any type of plans that we're potentially going to put into place for next year?
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of background kind of with it, because I know even like the first hockey game I went to several years ago when I first got here, it was after a game, it wasn't our kids, it was 2 other schools that was kind of out of control. And so then we had the conversation. We actually offered to the arena that we would have our Fortis guards go. And they declined, and I get, they didn't want a third party, and they didn't want, like, because we have Fortis guards are armed, but they wouldn't necessarily have to be. So they said, no, that's not what they would allow. We actually do pay our own guards to go when it's our event, when we're the host of that. And so we cover that, and we even do it if the other team, we've had them turned away by other schools. They're like, nope, we have this, they can't come in, either they're gonna have to pay, but we're policing this. And I don't disagree that we had 3 people that were there. And the arena only had 2 people working in the front, is my understanding. And then I believe, again, there were students who were taking tickets. There might have been 4 people there, but they weren't there from the host school. And the host school had 1 administrator there. So then our people were kind of even working with the arena people to kind of all of the different things that go on. Because the other thing with the arena is there are other events and other public things kind of going on along there. So they were helping them kind of put out those fires. And then this occurred outside the exit at the end of the game. And I've spoken to the superintendent of the host school and said, we would help do this. We checked beforehand. Do you have it covered? We have it covered. I don't know why our opponent didn't have anybody there. That we haven't gotten that clarified yet. But we have offered in the future. We're like, we have no problem sharing the cost. Like, even the host school typically hosts that event. And so we're like, we have no problem, like, even going in, because my understanding is they said at the next one, they did have Macomb County Sheriff there. And so that they had that in place at the next game, which was with our opponent. And I don't remember who they were playing. So we have tried to have, like, security there, but again, it's up to the host school to provide that. And we're limited by what they go with.
So I know it's no consolation today, but we have employed for about the last year and a half a director of safety and security, Ms. DePape, and I would ask that you work with her and direct her to figure out and come up with a plan for not only hockey, but all of our sporting events, and go so far as to reaching out to districts that we're visiting and asking them what their security plan is. And I know it's difficult for us to lean or lobby on the ice arena and what they're going to let us do. But I would also ask Ms. DePape to talk to St. Clair County Sheriff and our school resource officer at the high school, and reach out to other school resource officers at these other high schools that we're competing against. Sports are aggressive. Basketball. Soccer is actually one of the most violent sports I've ever watched in my life, especially girls soccer. I'm sure Mr. Powers can attest to that. He referees. But my point is that we have to figure out how to work with these other districts. And if they're not going to provide people, we need to lean on them as hard as we can. And even MHSAA to come down and say, look, if this other district's going to provide qualified security, and I will guarantee almost that we can get Fortis to put on as an additionally insured another district that we're going to visit, or a one-day type of insurance policy, or an indemnification, or whatever they need to make it happen, so that when we're on the road in these highly competitive and other environments, you certainly wouldn't think that 25 and DeQuinder would be a dangerous area, but they're high school kids. My 2 are out, but I remember what it was like when my son was in high school just 4 years ago. It's a lot of testosterone going on there. And I also heard that, it wasn't a friendly game. The crowds were into it, vulgarities, the complete, whole 9 yards. And, but I think the first step, I think hockey is done, correct? So our first step is to have Ms. DePape start looking at, what's coming up in tennis, baseball, and just start analyzing where we think we have issues, and start putting pressure on these other districts. And I would hope that you would put pressure on Macomb County districts where you might know the superintendent. Hey, my board's not happy. They're concerned. And quite frankly, as much as I don't ever want to not show up for a contest, if we're not feeling comfortable, a couple days before the event, email goes out to MHSAA and the other athletic director, we're not coming. You know, we're concerned that, you know, we're going to a place that is traditionally, it's very volatile. And we don't feel like you have this covered because we've asked and you've offered no explanation, no plan, nothing. We're not coming. Is that what we want to do as a school district? Absolutely not. We want to compete. But if it's not safe, I don't want to go there. I don't want to be one of those parents in the stands that's getting involved with, you know, interfering with 15 fights going outside the parking lot. These kids in high school are big. It's not a joke. These are adults. You know, even one law enforcement officer showing up there, you can call the cavalry, but they're 10 or 15 minutes away. And it's just him. You know, he's not engaging at that point. He's just hoping that people stop or he can talk them out of fighting any longer. But we need a plan. So I apologize to your son. That's horrible, and I'm glad somebody stepped in. Fortunately, I'd be one of those people that would step in, and you know, I'd be in the middle of fighting with, you know, 14 kids or whatever it might be. But so would yeah. Were police reports filed, and are you filing criminal charges? If you can find the, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to open it up to the board. And again, we don't normally do this, and I apologize that we're interacting because it's against our board policy, but as the president, looks like I've been given the luxury to override that for this discussion.
Yeah.
A couple things
So-
that come to mind for me, and Mr. Green, you mentioned it, but to me, if the suburban hockey rink cannot have adequate security, maybe Anchor Bay should look for a new home. But Port Huron has to have a hockey rink. Yes, ma'am. Interesting. Okay.
For our own team, even though the Romeo was the host of the event? Okay. But according to Superintendent Jankowski, that's been rebuffed. And again, that's getting back to my point where Mr. Pape needs to start leaning on these, and you're right, Mr. Richards, that there are a couple other, you know, there's one over in Rochester. It's not exactly convenient. Going to Port Huron maybe is a little bit closer.
I mean, to me, that's,
there,
to me, that.
Mount Clemens, right?
Yeah, to me, that should be something that we should be looking into now. Just to kind of better put ourselves in a better position for next year. I don't know, what's going on with the hockey rink, but if they obviously, sorry. I understand that, but to me, I'd rather if we have a closer rink like Mount Clemens that can promise us full security for full events where we don't have to worry about fights.
This is a problem that arenas when they're off-site that the schools really need to start together.
100%. And I think that's what I'm trying to say is, to me, if that's the big of an issue it is, to me, if I own a hockey rink and I have multiple, schools coming to me, I will guarantee you that, I'm going to have a full-time Macomb County sheriff there. I'm going to have a Clinton Township police officer there. That'd be my guarantee. If I can bring in new business that guarantees security and safety, to me, it sounds like there's a problem. You said 7 years this has been going on. To me, if there's a problem there, I mean, there's a big problem. It's going on for 7 years. And that's concerning to me, sitting on this board, that I'm allowing my students to go to a complex that has a security issue for 7 years. I mean, it shouldn't be happening. I'm boiling up here. To me, I want to call Lance Cruz tomorrow and question their student code of conduct. You mentioned that the students are at the next game. Those things to me are just, what upsets me a lot too. So, to me, if that was, our students, I wouldn't expect our students back at a game. We have a code of conduct as well. So. I think Jeremy knows kind of where we stand with a lot of things.
Unfortunately, I hate to say this, but now that this happened, maybe I'll actually get it.
And that's unfortunate, but you know that the reasoning for it is that that's why we're going to get that access. But now is the time to pull in attorneys and start talking about what we can do to make this happen and make sure, because you know, even the ice arena is probably concerned about the legalities of having our officers there. So. They're what? They should be upset. They should actually be embarrassed. Perfect. A man from us all day long. We'll provide it.
Smallest kid at Anchor Bay High School jump into this fight and push these kids out of the way. It would have taken one male adult, one person, and it would have never happened. Or if it started, it would have been able to stop because it started over here by the door and it proceeded as they started attacking.
Of course, of course.
Any of you guys actually see the video?
I have not.
I have not.
No, I'm not. I was the first one to bring the video 4 days after it happened for the actual principal to skip, which was pretty sad too.
If- Can you do me a favor and forward that to Superintendent Jankowski? Not that I want to watch, because I see enough of that, but,
And could you
okay.
forward
And go ahead, Dom. Please, let's open up to the board.
Yeah.
We're,
I'd like
let's
you to
talk about
forward it
this.
to us as well. At least I want to see it. So you can find my email on the board webpage. You have my email address. I want to, so do we know if Lance Cruz has identified those students? Are they aware of the incident?
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
All of them
Okay.
that were still not identified.
Mhm.
They were identified that same night and that night.
Okay. And as we're aware at this point in time, they have chosen to do nothing to those students, or we just don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
There's pictures of them at the hockey game the next day.
Okay.
Like, all it takes is someone to hold back the whole team to
Mhm.
allow the away team, because it's a big game.
Mhm.
There's 200 kids there.
Mhm.
If somebody had been there to release the LCN kids, sheriff in the parking lot, making sure that they see that it's happening, those kids are released, Anchor Bay is held back for another 5 minutes, and then they're released. It's all.
Yeah.
But I had an issue, the parent going into the other team's dressing room.
Mhm. Wow.
So one thing I wanted to ask or clarify, so when Anchor Bay hosts a game, if we're the host or the home team, we send an administrator or athletic director for that?
Yeah, well,
If we're like home or host, okay.
All the time, because that's all where Romeo playing, for Eisenhower.
Right.
Right.
That's our ice.
yeah.
So
half
it
the
gets a
schools
little
play there.
confused
Right.
back and forth, yeah.
Yeah, and the parents run
So
the operation.
just kind of off the top of my head, like the I don't want to say simplest, but to me, the best solution would be that we need to work with Suburban, and whether, I hate to say this, but whether it gets tacked on to our fees for using Suburban, but it seems like between everybody who uses Suburban as their home ice, whether it's us or Romeo or Dakota, or I don't know if that's where they, but, we need to either pay or, share the cost of a sheriff or somebody, or maybe it's a new employee for Suburban that, is present at all these games, but somebody that's guaranteed to be there. Because my concern in listening to what happened here is we can always do our job, right? But then we're always relying on, is Romeo really going to follow through? Is this district going to follow through? And unfortunately, we don't know until we get there and find out it didn't, and like you said, it's 20 minutes away. How do we fix that in the moment? And then to not only fix it, but then not punish our students or our players, you know, to say cancel the game or this or that, you know, like because of a failure on their end, right? So my thought is to maybe work with Suburban, maybe jointly, and the other districts to say, hey, you know, either you need to provide the security, you need to provide it and tack it on to everybody, because, you know, that's the only way to ensure that it actually happens and that there's follow through, and that we're not relying on one another. Right. And I think the other piece, right. Right.
Yeah, it shouldn't be parents' responsibility.
And the other piece is to have maybe some sort of protocol that happens at these games, like you said, to where, you know, fans of one team get dismissed, you know, in a group, get out, leave the property, or if you're staying for the next game, you know, you got to go into the lobby, you got to, you know, we supervise that release, we release the next group, we release this team, we really, you know, like in a piecemeal fashion, so that it's kind of, you know, to the best of your ability, right? Like supervise. If somebody, yeah, I don't want to discount what happens to anybody, but, you know, to some level, I feel like because it is off-site, we probably can't, you know, we can't guarantee that we would prevent everything. But, you know, if we maybe come up with, like I said, a meeting of all the groups where, you know, we continue to have these issues, or the groups that use Suburban as their home ice, and to come up with a protocol that the person that we hopefully find to be in charge and kind of designate these things can do to dismiss the different groups, and, you know, maybe keep them a little segregated because of how the games and the situations can heat up. You know, maybe that would be the best way to move. Yeah. Right.
I don't know if you heard Mr. Richards' comment. I think his mic is off, but his comment was, it's not your job to be security. It's not your job to go. You should be out there with your senior kids. You should be the moms and dads crying because it's their last hockey game at the high school, not worrying about what's happening in the stands or in the parking lot.
100%.
He accidentally involved them, they started tackling them, I had 5 different parents call me and tell me they were there, and I was just walking away, and they were going to get their sons, and, he was in the lobby, he hung out there for a little bit with his friends, they went to go walk out the front door so he could leave and come home, because he knows he's gotta be home because it's school night, otherwise mom's gonna yell at him. And so they kind of walked out, but they went out the farthest door, but he, in the back of his head, you know, they were heckling, he wondered, he kind of, you know, but there was nobody there, he could have asked for help. Hey, I think this guy might, you know, so him and his buddies went out in the group to try to avoid it. And as soon as he went out, they ran after him, turned him around, and her son actually jumped in to try to de-escalate it. And then he ended up punching Casey, and then he went after my son, and then they ended up getting them all on the ground.
Does anybody else have a comment before we move on?
If I may.
Yeah, Mr. Powers.
You'd mentioned we've offered in the past to provide our Fortis guards, for example, and we've been turned up. That's in the context of being official event security, correct?
Yes.
What's to stop us from telling 1 or 2 of our Fortis guards, you're going to accompany our hockey team, we're going to pay for your time, we're going to pay for your entry? How can they stop that any more than they can stop us from sending coaches, assistant coaches, trainers, or any other support? Isn't that quite a simple solution, or am I overthinking this?
It comes down to insurance and kind of like jurisdiction, I guess, for lack of a better term, because if it's not, I mean, just imagine if it was at another district, okay? Imagine it was a basketball game at another district. We can't send ours unless they give like permission, because I get some of the concerns, like you're going to put somebody, another third party security who may or may not be armed.
Right, but it doesn't have to, what I'm saying is it doesn't have to be like they're here to be security for the event. They're here, we're going to have an understanding between our support people, from Fortis, for example, and our coaching staff that this is the protocol. When the game's over, the guards will be over here at this bay, meet them here. They will accompany you to the bus at, like it just seems like a pretty simple solution, but.
Yeah, they did not want them on the.
No, but why do they have a say, I guess is my point.
It's their
When
property. It's a private
Right, but
property.
how can they stop us from sending them to accompany our team any more than they can stop us from sending an assistant coach or a trainer
Well,
or
that's true,
anything
but
like
if
that?
something happens and they have to get involved, then it becomes that becomes the issue. So that's why we
Well,
contact
but something did happen like that. I guess that's my point is now like, I don't know. I feel like if smart people get in a room and
Yeah,
don't
no.
leave until there's an answer that's not too far away. I
No,
guess
and-
that's the point I'm trying to
and
make.
I'll tell you, hockey is because most arenas, okay,
Yeah.
that they run it very bare bones. Like I think they only had 2 people working up front. I typically, and they have more people that are working like the Zamboni. Yeah, and I get it because I think that's the same thing. Like the Mount Clemens one just changed hands, and so they're on a very tight thing, which I get. But again, you're also running this business that should have security there because that's it. And so that's why we're like, hey, we have because I believe hasn't that arena changed hands? I believe in the last. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guarantee you, if you go to the hockey rink, every single school that has a home rink there and says we're leaving
Yeah.
unless you fix it, it will be fixed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, right. I mean, just listening to hear that this has been going on for 7
Yeah.
years, and granted, sure, they may have changed hands, but to me, I think we should be reaching out to other school districts saying, where's the new rink we're going? Because if they can't fix it, let's find a new rink.
Right.
Yeah.
But those
we
are
get-
discussions that our athletic
Yeah,
directors
yeah.
should be
No, that's
having,
what
and
we're-
then the superintendents are
Right.
having
Yeah.
at the same time. Look, we're all in agreement. This isn't what we want. Let's set aside who was at fault with this particular challenge,
Right.
this issue.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same
Right.
concern.
I don't want to sit here next year and have another parent just tell me that
Yeah.
same story because the rink can't manage their security. I understand that,
Yeah.
Agreed.
but
Agreed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Agreed. Agreed. Anybody else? Well, again, I think Superintendent Jankowski has marching orders, if you will. We need to protect our students. And that's what we're here for, not only to educate them, but to protect them. And so we need to make some changes. And I think we have the right people in the district to lead the event. We look at our test scores and some other stuff, and we lead Macomb County not only with what I would consider to be one of the stronger superintendents in Macomb County, quite honestly, but as well as with our academics and with our leadership. And we put a director of safety and security in our district that other districts don't have. They're just now considering hiring somebody, but some of their funding's been pulled back on that, so they're not doing it. Quite frankly, there's several board members up here supported armed security guards in our schools. Did we want them? Absolutely not. It was the last thing I wanted to do. But what I want to do is I want that person who's a do bad guy to drive down to the next school district, unfortunately, and not choose Anchor Bay because, we're on the news with these things. We're talking about them continuously. I go by our schools and I see our safety and security personnel outside during a recess at Lighthouse Elementary. They're clear and presently there, and their job is to not let you hurt our students. So we need to take that a little bit further into our athletics and figure out how we can make that happen. So I apologize that your son had to go through what he went through, but I'm hoping that I don't have, to Mr. Richards' point, I don't want to have another mom or dad here telling me your story like you just had to tell us. It's not okay. I'm sorry? Concussions are nasty, especially sounds like his was particularly violent. Anybody, anything else before we move on? All right, let's move on to item I, communications.
No communications.
All right, item J, the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are of recurring nature and are voted on as a single item. Any board member may request an item be removed without the vote of the board and it will be discussed and voted upon individually. Recommended action from administration is the Board of Education approve the consent agenda, minutes, personnel report, financial reports, and bills payable. I will entertain a motion to that effect.
Can I make my first motion?
You absolutely may. Welcome.
Thank you.
I will second.
Motion by Mr. Sunnyberger, supported by Ms. Knox. Comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none, sir, could you call the roll?
Sure will. Motion by Mrs. Sonnyberger,
Aye.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
You're just fine. I understood. Aye.
I got it.
Continue on. Sorry.
You're good. Mr. Powers,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatieri,
Yes.
Richards is a yes, and Mr. Green.
Yes. All right, moving on to new business. Item 1 under new business is field trips. The first of which is a forensic MSCI spring tournament. Dawn Batiste, the drama teacher at the high school, is requesting permission to take 3 to 5 students to Mackinac Island, May 15th through 18th for the Michigan Speech Coaches Incorporated Spring Festival. There will be 1 to 3 chaperones accompanying them on that trip. And it looks like they are driving personal vehicles up there. So the recommended action from administration is that the Board of Education approve the drama field trip request to Mackinac Island, May 15th through 18th, 2025. I will entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Richards. Comments, questions, or concerns?
They go on this trip last year?
I think so.
Right.
You don't think so?
Oh, no, they did, because it was in Mackinac, yeah. Yeah, they did.
It's expensive. It's Mackinac. Says the parent who goes to Mackinac. Any other further comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Next field trip is a request from Jennifer Massey. Teacher is requesting permission to take 18 students to the Amway Grand in Grand Rapids, April 9th and 10th, 2025 for the MDOT State Bridge Competition. They'll be traveling via school bus with 3 chaperones. The recommended action from administration is that the Board of Education approve the MDOT State Bridge Competition field trip, April 9th and 10th, 2025 as presented. I will entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
I'm sorry, who made the motion? Mr. Vendatelli, supported by Ms. Knox. Comments, questions, or concerns?
Remind me, because I know I was one that brought it up before, but did we kind of stipulate to have more than one chaperone for overnights, or was that only because of we had the situation where it was only 1 student and 1 adult that we said two?
One student, 1 adult.
Okay.
In this one, we do have 3 chaperones for the 18.
Right, because I know, but the one you had just said, I was thinking the forensics, it says 1 to
Oh.
3.
That's a good point.
Well, we have a motion on the table. Let's circle back to talk about the forensic trip after we approve or deny the request from Miss Massey.
There's no policy around number of chaperones versus number of students then, right?
Generally, we try and make sure we have 1 for every 10.
1 to 10, okay.
So I still want to circle back to that.
100%.
Any other concerns with the MDOT trip for Miss Massey? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Miss Massey's trip is approved. Let's jump back to the MCSI Spring Tournament on Mackinac. And I believe Ms. Berkmeyer is right. This board did have a discussion.
I thought it was just about having more
Well,
than
I
one,
think, yeah, 'cause
more
it
than
was-
one chaperone.
That's what I was trying to remember. Was it because it was only it was 1 student and 1 adult?
One adult. That was the
And that was
issue.
where we were not comfortable. So
Yeah.
we added.
So this is 3 to 5 students and 1 to 3 chaperones according to the field trip request. We can modify your approval if you want to make it 2 chaperones, a minimum of 2 chaperones.
You can't because you can't vote on.
I can add it back to the agenda and
Remember, we had that with the closed session. on that one. Can't re-vote
make
on
it-
it.
We can respectfully request.
we will respectfully request that. I don't think.
But we will.
But the situation was more that it was only one student and one adult, not, so I mean, if there's we didn't necessarily haven't in the past had a problem with one adult with multiple
With
students.
3 to
for
5.
over-
Correct.
Right.
It was the one-on-one,
Right,
so there
so
was
it's not an issue
accountability.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to verify.
You'll have.
By themselves?
Yeah.
So are you guys okay with leaving the motion as it is and?
No,
I am.
well, what I think we can do, Mr. Green, is we can have someone propose a addition. We can vote to have an additional item put in place right now and then vote to have an additional chaperone at no less than 2 to the existing field trip. And then vote on that motion and then carry on forward to the rest of the agenda.
I think we already voted to approve it as presented, so
We did.
I don't know if we can go and end around it now.
No, I mean, we'll make sure that's.
We just need to make sure that Ms. Matisse understands that we would
request will-
prefer 2 or more.
I'll get another check.
That'll probably be
Yeah,
like.
because I think the cost, oh, no, this is the expensive one to Mackinac, that's right.
Yeah.
Mr. Green, I think you are.
But we put the,
Right?
I am not interested in going to Mackinac,
Oh, all right.
not at a cost of $600 for a
Is it
couple nights.
Michigan?
he only goes to Lansing.
I only go to Lansing.
Valid.
Thank you for recognizing me.
Yes, that's Lansing only.
All right, we have one more field trip request from the BPA, Business Professionals of America, to attend the State Leadership Conference. James Wagner, teacher at the high school, is requesting permission to take 21 students to Amway Grand Hotel in Grand Rapids, March 13th through 18th, 2025 for the State Leadership Conference. They will travel via Blue Lakes Charter Bus with 3 chaperones. The recommended action is that the Board of Education approve the BPA field trip, March 13th through 18th, 2025, as presented. I will entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Vendatelli. Comments, questions, or concerns?
Think it's similar but different issue, a 1-to-7 ratio. It's a little bit close to what's uncomfortable for me. I don't know if one chaperone can wrangle 7 students or if that's any issue. I guess, Mr. Superintendent, would you like to shed some
Yeah,
light? Does that-
for high school students, yeah, that's not a
Okay.
problem. Yeah.
And I think likely 2 teachers are probably attending this.
Yeah, and then what we'll do too, just on this form, we'll add whatever the chaperone, we'd like at least 2 chaperones and
Oh, for future requests?
yeah, for future
Yeah.
requests.
Yeah, this one has got 3.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mr. Meditelli? Anybody else? Right. Nope. Yes?
No.
Good.
Yep.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those approved? Motion passes. Apparently we had 4. We do have 4. This is a field trip request from DECA. Jacob Yono, one of our teachers who we actually saw tonight and is present in the audience, if you have any questions. Teacher at the high school is requesting permission to take 61 students to Huntington Place, the Detroit Marriott, March 13th through 15th, 2025 for the state competition. They will travel via rental bus with 5 chaperones.
And I think it's him and 5 chaperones, so we're kind of.
We're going to be asking Mr. Yono to step to the podium there based on the recent discussion. I will entertain a motion to approve the field trip as presented.
A motion.
Yeah, go for it.
Motion by Mr. Richards,
Can you find an additional chaperone, sir?
Second.
supported by Mr. Powers.
Sure we
Comment,
can.
questions, concerns from the board?
Question about, so they're gonna be in Detroit okay, so what does free time and downtime look like? Where are the kids gonna go?
So the hotel itself is in the Detroit Marriott where we stay. And then the actual convention part is at the Huntington Place, or the competition part is in the convention center down there. So we kind of travel back and forth between those 2 venues.
How do you get from one to the other?
They provide.
I know it's not a tremendous amount of distance, but
Yeah, the walk is about a whole 8-minute walk, straight shot that way.
right.
And then we
down
also have the
Jefferson.
people mover, but anytime that we move down that way, we move in groups because, the way competition schedule falls and all that kind of stuff, we move with chaperones. So it's either the people mover if the weather's bad, or it's that 8-minute walk if not, but it's a straight shot down, that's Jefferson, I believe there.
Yeah, it is Jefferson.
And we do have, it's 5+ me in chaperone wise, just so.
Okay,
you-
so we have a total of 6,
Correct, yep.
which just barely covers that 10-1. Mr. Powers?
Is that your real handwriting on the application or is that AI generated? Because that's the most amazing handwriting I've ever
Thank
seen.
you.
Did
That
you
is,
guys see this guy's handwriting? That's crazy.
It's an
That's your real
iPad-
handwriting?
It's an iPad and an Apple Pencil, but it is my
Okay,
handwriting.
that's
yeah.
so cool.
Thank you.
Did you see it? Did you look at it? Yeah.
Also compliments on the handwriting, even if it's on a screen.
Thank you.
Oh, clearly,
Yeah.
clearly.
Thank you,
Anybody
thank
else?
you.
Yeah, so I would like to see more chaperones. I would say, like to see, I know you deal with these students a lot, right? You probably have no issue with them if there are 61 students in a classroom, hopefully less than that. But if it's like an after-school project, I'd like to see it at least like a 1 to 7, maybe at the max, especially if you're going to Detroit. And I know they're only gonna be walking back and forth between Detroit and Huntington Place, but if it's 1 to, I think it's like 10.1 students per chaperone. I don't believe there's any feasible way to keep track of that many students per chaperone. And especially if you're going to Detroit and there's a lot of stuff, even if it's safer now than it was a couple years ago, it's still dangerous. And so to see if we can find some way to get more chaperones before I approve this. I guess what options would we have for that?
Either yes or no.
Well, we can make a conditional. You guys would have to agree to modify your motion and support, but we could make a conditional.
Would you be able to get more chaperones?
Yes, we're talking 7 total. Right?
Yeah, 7 would be
yeah,
what, 8?
We could make that
8,
happen. The,
little over
conf-
8
the
students.
the only reason we're at the number of chaperones that we are now is because I know the district policy may be a little bit loose
right around
depending
10.
on the actual event. So this is just in compliance with Michigan DECA's thing. So it's a 1-to-11 ratio. So that's the number that we have. But if you wish, we can add another chaperone to there, and just so we would have, our program would cover the cost of that. But I'm sure we can make it work for the approval on that. And I should just reassure you too, that we travel a lot and we've kind of got our system down in terms of that. So when you talk and when you kind of break that down, 1 to 10 is really beautiful. It's a good ratio, but something manageable is usually 15 to 20 per chaperone. Just from experience, we travel quite a bit, but if we need another one, I'm more than happy to find another one on
Did
there.
you lose any students in Orlando?
Never, never.
Some wanted to stay, I'm sure.
So what's your pleasure?
You said 8. 8 would be a good number. I prefer to see 10. That was 1 to 6. But if you say it's a good system for 1 to 15, I mean, I'm trusting you with that.
Yeah, and we've taken, like, our most recent one we took with that number of students was downtown Detroit to Pistons games. So kind of the same concept there. And like I said, we all kind of move in groups, the travel for any of these things is never not facilitated by a chaperone. But I guess also too, if, maybe we want to clarify with your policy or something moving forward, and we'd be happy to have that many
Yeah,
chaperones.
I think before we start really making more decisions on what the ratio is, we need to kind of make our own.
Revisit
policy.
the policy.
Right, instead of
We'll
kind
put
of
that
sitting
in
up
next
here
policy.
and dancing around.
And maybe we should consider, if we're going to do a policy change, that it's a higher, there's high, I guess a lower ratio based on elementary, middle school, or high school.
Yeah, generally.
This isn't like herding cats. I mean, these are,
Yeah, and if I may as well,
14,
I
15-year-olds,
certainly
so.
agree that, like, it depends on the nature of the thing. So I'll tell you, we take more overnight trips than anything else. The ratio definitely
Yeah.
should be higher for those. But if it's like, a day field trip when we go to one event, I think you probably could get, just saying, because we do this a lot when we travel. You
Yeah,
probably could have a higher ratio.
and-
So you
and
may want to be
generally-
adaptable.
We just
Yes.
approved Orlando with X amount of chaperones, and here we are kind of dancing around a ratio. I think we're kind of,
Right.
we're getting a little sideways here.
So I think it's something we should discuss probably at policy.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
And if you need someone to go to Orlando next year, let me know.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
And just from an advisor standpoint too, and I will say we love the extra chaperones, but sometimes more is not necessarily always
Right.
better.
No, and there's
Especially
costs that
if
go
you
with
start
that.
to have to
Right,
bring,
right.
we love the parent support, but if you start to have to bring parents and not faculty and people from the high school, it gets a little bit
Parent has to pay for
complicated.
themselves, yeah.
So let's, if we could, Superintendent, if we could add that to
Yeah.
the policy, your next policy meeting,
Absolutely.
just a review.
Great.
Are you on policy?
Yes.
Perfect.
Staying late that night.
Perfect. Appreciate it. All right, so we have a motion and a support. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Okay, all of those in favor of approving it as presented, say aye.
Yeah.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good luck to everybody who's traveling for these competitions. 'Cause I think it's, I think there's, 3 competitions and 1 educational opportunity. So we're definitely getting out there. All right, policy, second reading, trimester graduation credits. The proposed change in graduation requirements is a necessary adjustment to align with the transition from semesters to trimesters, ensuring that students have a clear and equitable path to graduation. Under the trimester system, students will have more opportunities to earn credits each year, allowing for greater flexibility in course selection and scheduling. By revising the requirements, we can better distribute the credit load across the 3 terms, reducing student stress and create additional room for remediation, enrichment, or exploration of electives. This change reflects the district's commitment to supporting student success and maintaining high academic standards while accommodating the structural benefits of the trimester schedule. The recommended action from administration is the Board of Education approve the proposed changes in the graduation requirements as presented. I will entertain a motion to that effect.
I will make the motion.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Knox, supported by Mr. Powers. Comments, questions, or concerns?
I have a calendar question. So we're starting before Labor Day this
Yes.
coming year because of trimesters, correct?
Not necessarily because of trimesters, but it does help. It's mostly because we also have the college programs that were,
Okay, that's part of it.
yeah, that's
Okay.
part of it as well. Yeah.
Would that be a permanent part of a trimester model as we can expect to start before Labor
Yeah,
Day every
if-
year?
If you start before Labor Day, then you finish before Thanksgiving. And so the way that
Okay.
so it's a nice time to kind of end it.
Okay.
Yeah.
This year it's 2 days, correct? 2 days, we have 2 days of, I
Yeah.
mean, I know they're half days, but two
Yeah.
days in school before Labor Day.
Yeah, a day and, 2
Do,
days.
do we
a
expect
day
it
and a
to,
half.
to be 2, or is it gonna, do we think it'll expand
No,
to that
it's,
full
it's
week?
really basically with the negotiations that we had when we did the letter of agreement on the calendar was because Labor Day kind of resets on its time. So you know how it's always moving like later in the month and then it
Right.
resets the beginning. That essentially the teachers and everybody are returning basically the same day as they do every summer. So it gave us kind of a 3-year kind of like transition so that they're still coming back like it's like August 27th, 28th is still the first day to report.
Okay.
And so that was kind of the logic behind phasing that in.
But however many days we start early, we get out early on the back
get out
end, at
early on the
least,
other end,
if not
yes.
more, right? So it does not
Yeah.
truncate the summer vacation at all, because that's a concern about starting back early and you're
Yeah.
squeezing our, but it's gonna, on the back end, you're gonna
On the
start,
back
you're
end, yeah. you
you're
get
gonna
out.
start
Yeah,
early, correct? Okay.
exactly.
But I
Thank you.
also think too that it's dependent on snow days as well.
Well,
Dennis,
yeah, if you
what are
go
doing?
over.
Don't
six,
don't
yeah.
go
Throwing it
there
in
right
there.
now.
Yeah.
Throwing it in there.
Yeah.
So is it a Wednesday, Thursday start before Labor Day
Yes. So
this year?
this coming
This
year.
coming
it'd be-
year.
Yeah. So teachers would report Monday and Tuesday, then a half day on Wednesday and a full day on Thursday. And then by law, you can't have school the Friday
Friday.
before Labor Day.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Other comments? All right. Hearing none, I am actually going to call the roll call on this since it's a policy change. You're going to call the roll call, actually, Mr.
Yes,
Mr.
yes,
Perry?
Mr. Richards. Nice to meet you.
Uh-huh.
Ms. Knox? Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger?
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Vinatieri?
Yes.
Richards is a yes, and Mr. Green?
Yes. Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda is a second policy reading of the Athletic Code of Conduct. I am actually not planning on reading this. It is attached to your board packet. And it is attached, you will find the inappropriate use of the internet and social media update to the Athletic Code of Conduct. The recommended action from administration is to approve this change to the Athletic Code of Conduct. So we can certainly have a discussion. However, I would like to entertain a motion to support, and then we'll figure out if we want to talk about it.
I will make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Knox. A first, second by Mr. Sunnyberger. Comments, questions, concerns? Mr. Powers.
So I'm assuming this came out of some policy discussion maybe from last year and we're just now getting around to working on this. What was the impetus behind this?
The basic, this brings us in, there have been Supreme Court challenges that again, this goes back to jurisdiction. What's the extent that you can kind of reach into things, especially in this day of social media? There were the most recent one was basically, it was a cheerleader who had an issue with cheerleading team, made comments after the outside of school, wasn't in school, at home, on social media. And basically they then banned her from being on cheer. But you have a First Amendment right when it's outside, unless the case law is basically there has to be a significant disruption or it has to go directly to all of that. So they still have First Amendment rights in that regard. The other one was it was a student who was basically created a website and nothing that was basically with a staff member and cats, nothing kind of inappropriate or anything like that. And then they basically disciplined the student for it. And they said, no, again, is there a significant disruption? Are you mocking the person? Are you doing anything like that? No, it was kind of harmless. So this just brings that policy into alignment with current case law.
And I also will say, Mr. Powers, I don't mean to cut you off, but this was, we did get an update and recommendations from our legal firm. So this one probably actually came from them, where they recommend that we have some outdated policies based on what's happening in the state. Here's what we recommend you should change. So I don't mean to interrupt you as well. But
They recommended, because we had a lot of like specific examples and now we've struck all that out and now it's just kind of very broad in general. Was that by design?
Well, part of it is because the technology changes so often and the different transmission of how that you have that and all that. And you don't, the main gist of those cases was the whole, what they call the nexus and the substantial disruption threshold and all that. So you just have to, we were a little bit more precise on things, but those things aren't necessarily by law, like issues.
Yeah.
You have to have all that. So yeah, that's why it's a little bit more broad, because.
Okay. And then last question, why did they recommend we remove the cyberbullying component? Because that seems like it.
Well, again, if it's not related to school, so if they're doing it on, because that's the overall thing. If it's something that is outside of school on their own time, then we can't, unless there's a direct connection to school, we don't have that ability to reach that far. It's beyond our jurisdiction for discipline.
Okay. So the point of this is to prevent us from overreaching.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess I should ask that first, but my bad.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's.
Anyone else? All right, hearing no other concerns, we'll move on to another roll call vote since it's a policy change. Mr. Richards.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Knox?
Yeah.
Mr. Sunnyberger?
Yes.
Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Vinatieri?
Yes.
Richards, yes. Mr. Green?
Yes. Motion carries. Moving on to new business, item 3. We're going to do some award recommendations. The first of which is some abatement work. Anchor Bay Schools received bids for asbestos abatement work at Lighthouse, Middle School North and Middle School South on January 27th of 2025. Abatement will take place this summer, 2025. Nova Environmental and Corey Wiley, Maintenance Supervisor, has reviewed the bids. It is the recommendation to award the asbestos abatement bid to Building Decommission Services in the amount of $143,100. This project is being funded by bond funds. Recommended action for administration is the Board of Education approve the award to Building Decommission Services and the contract to provide asbestos abatement per specifications in the amount of $143,100. And the bid tabulation you should have in your board packet. So I would entertain a motion to that effect.
I will second.
Was that Mr. Powers? I'm not paying attention. His microphone's not on. So motion by Mr. Powers, support by Ms. Knox. Comments, questions, or concerns?
Mr. Powers and my voice sound that much alike?
Yes, they do.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the next meeting, you guys won't be sitting next to each other.
Yeah.
It's gonna separate you like
Two
second graders.
For the record, I have a better beard.
All
That's
right.
fair, I suppose.
We'll
I'm
allow it.
looking-
Well, we're on, just to point out, I don't know if you caught.
Are you going off of the beards or are we going off?
No,
of
no, no.
board
Yeah,
recommendation?
Going off of the board recommendation here. This is the second highest bidder, or lowest bidder, I should say. The first one, when you have the meetings after the bids and they're like, oh, we missed a large scope of the project. So they withdrew their bid. So technically it's the lowest one after
Okay.
all.
So they didn't meet the bid specs
Yes.
and later withdrew.
And yeah.
Been asked that, so it was like 50,000 off.
Yeah, so then they have the option, you can do this at that price, or you can rescind, and then they said, no, we're going to rescind.
Okay.
Do you
That's the
know,
board.
do you know offhand where the asbestos is that they're removing?
Yeah, it says it on the, it is, a lot of it is, it's the mastic, underneath the tile.
Gotcha.
Especially Lighthouse, for some reason, when they replaced the floor, I don't know, a
40,
couple
50
decades
years,
ago or
right.
whatever, they put in non-asbestos tile, but they left the mastic underneath, which, you can keep it encapsulated.
Sure.
Typically, you would remove it. It's also, the doors themselves, the core of the doors, because again, it's fireproofing. And then, strangely, the clocks on the wall,
Really?
not the clocks themselves, but the box behind the clock, it's like an 8x8 or something like that. The around that actually has asbestos around that. And again, as long as they're there, we're not touching them, but no, we're
Sure.
taking down walls and then the door assemblies.
Anyone else? Hearing none, Mr. Secretary, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Green? Mr. Powers?
Yes.
Ms. Knox?
Yes.
Mrs. Sonnyberger?
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer?
Yes.
Mr. Vinatieri?
Yes.
Richards, yes. Mr. Green?
Yes. Motion carries. Our next award is.
Mr. Chairman,
for
I'm
net-
sorry to interrupt, and I'm a little embarrassed, but can I motion to have a 2-minute recess?
You may.
Thank you.
Do we have a support for that?
I'll support.
All those in favor of a 2-minute recess signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
All right, we were back and we're going to continue on our agenda with under new business of the network switching. Communications by design. And Tim Sizemore reviewed the completeness of some bids to determine if the components and labor bid met the specifications. Conducted post-bid interviews with the bidder for the network upgrades. Specifically discussed the system's configurations, including components and unique post-bid clarifications. They also reviewed the contractor, provided references, conducted a final bid decision based on the bid total and prior experience. The recommendation for this project is people-driven technology for the cost of $390,594.71. The recommended action is that the board approve a contract with people-driven technology of Wixom, Michigan in the amount of $390,594.71 for network upgrades. I will entertain a motion to that effect.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Ms. Knox,
I'll second.
second by Mr. Vinatelli. Comments, questions, Discussion. Mr. Powers.
It looks like when they originally bid, they were like both right neck and neck, 404,000, 406,000, and then People Driven, it looks like they pulled like almost $16,000 worth of whatever patch cables are out of their bid. Was that something that was included in the bid that wasn't supposed to be in the bid, or did they?
No, what, a lot of times what you have with contractors is they'll bid and they'll bid alternates.
Okay.
And then, hey, you can do it this way, but if we do this, then therefore we'll deduct. And then you're seeing it more and more because that gives them the ability to have a bid, but then also have a second kind of bid because they can kind of knock down and then become the lowest bidder if you take that alternate. So with that, then.
So both contractors had the opportunity to rework
Yeah.
their bid and, okay, and do we just not?
Well, they don't get a chance to rework it. You get one bid, you put it in,
Okay.
but we have there sometimes like we'll bid it and we'll say, hey, we have alternates that we want to see. What would it be? And then we decide on those bids. Okay, do we want to do it? Like the best example is with the high school flooring. When we did phase 3, we had done the hallways for the wings, but then there's the kind of the mezzanine level outside in front of the library and in front of the wings on the second level. So we did that as an alternate. So then, but when we consider it, we consider, do we want to go and do that alternate? But now more and more what you're seeing are contractors who they're like, hey, I can save you money if you do this, or if we do that. And then so then we factor that in. It's kind of their chance of giving options because they're like, hey, we can do this and it'll be a less expensive and it makes them the low bidder.
Okay.
If I recall correctly, we've used People Driven before.
Yes, we have.
Yes, okay.
Did they do our Wi-Fi project?
I don't know off the top of my head. Tim can tell you. Yes, they did.
Yes, they did. Okay, from off camera. Anyone else? Comments, questions, or concerns? All right, let's find out who wants to spend $390,594.71. Mr. Richards.
Yes, sir, Mr. Green. Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatieri,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Powers.
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer.
Yes.
Richards is yes. Mr. Green?
Yes. Motion carries. All right, on down to our next item, number 4, MASB Board of Directors 2025 election. MASB Board of Director election, I'll start again. That break threw me off, Mr. Sunnyberger. I don't know if you're going to get my vote next time. MASB Board of Director election is how school board members exercise their voice and decide who governs their association. They're asking for our help to get maximum participation in the 2025 election. We represent Region 8 Macomb ISD with 1 3-year term open. So at this time, I would entertain a motion to select a candidate, to nominate a candidate for the board's approval. I will open the floor up.
I would prefer to nominate, I believe it's Mr. Wallace from Fraser. And just for my rationale behind that is, I think it's the only candidate from Macomb County, wasn't he?
No, there's actually.
Oh, there was Clintondale.
Same thing, but I didn't know Wallace was on there. I know. Yeah.
No, you're right. There was somebody, I think, from Clintondale. I think Fraser, in proximity compared to Oakland and Wayne County candidates, might, share some of our needs a little bit better, and probably as the best candidate on there, in my opinion, to be in similar mindset to our board. So that would be my preference.
All right, so I have a motion on the floor by Ms. Berkmeyer for Mr. Wallace from Fraser Public Schools.
I'll second.
I have a second for Mr. Vendatelli. Any further discussion? There are 2 candidates from Macomb County, one from Fitzgerald and one from Fraser.
No, actually, there's a Clintondale too.
Is there a Clintondale too? So there are 3.
Yep. But similar size district. Yep. And closer.
Being Clintondale or Fraser?
Fraser is about the same size as us.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a motion on the floor for Mr. Wallace. Is there any further discussion?
Just a clarifying question. We get to vote for one member. There's one spot open.
Correct.
Got it.
All right, so we'll do a roll call vote here, because we are electing somebody. And again, the motion is to elect, Mr. Wallace as our representative of our board. Mr. Secretary.
Sure, Mr. Green. Motion by Ms. Burkmeyer. Mr. Vinatieri,
Yes.
Mr. Sonnyberger,
Yes.
Mr. Powers.
Yes.
Richards is a yes. Ms. Knox
Yes.
and Mr. Green.
Yes. Congratulations, Mr. Wallace. Obviously, every school district selects a candidate, and the highest vote getter in this region is the one that's elected to the MASB, which you two guys will probably have the opportunity to attend some MASB events, and certainly the conference. That is what, Phil, September?
Yeah, it's September, October.
September, October. And this year, I think it might be in Traverse City. Well, Phil's looking that up. Moving on, item 5 is a volunteer appeal. As part of our recent policy update, we instituted an appeals process for those parents who wish to volunteer or accompany students on field trips. Current practice is to hold parents to the same restrictions the state places on district employees. The appeal process will allow each parent to speak about their appeal for 5 minutes, and then the board will vote on the appeal. Tonight, we have one appeal from parent A. When parent A completes speaking, a board member certainly can feel comfortable to make a motion to approve or not approve the appeal of parent A. Is parent A here? Would you like to step to the podium? Correct. Got it. So if there is a motion, it will be to approve. And a yes or no vote from each member. And I will let you know that you are not on camera. So at this time, I will entertain a motion for an appeal to approve the appeal for for parent A?
I'll move to approve it.
I'll second.
Motion by microphone Powers. Second by Ms. Knox. Any discussion, comments, questions?
So is it our policy that requires this to be done at a board meeting, or is it like state law that requires it to be done at a board meeting?
So we put a policy in place, probably about a year ago, Superintendent Jankowski.
No, it's been 2 years now.
2 years now. And the process is that just as I read, the parent fills out the application, we run through the background check, the
Right.
same standard that we use for district employees. And then a decision is made based on what is discovered in that background.
And I was
check.
referring to the appeal part.
And then the appeal goes to Superintendent Jankowski,
Okay.
where he can then override the determination that that person cannot volunteer.
Yeah.
In this case, Superintendent Jankowski denied that appeal. And the second level is it comes to us as a board to decide if we want to accept that appeal
And
to allow an override.
So Phil said,
No, I'm not involved in the appeal goes directly to the board.
Oh, it does. I'm sorry.
Yes.
I thought it stopped at your desk before.
No.
No?
Nope.
I apologize.
Okay.
I'm just,
Yeah.
so it's our
Yeah.
policy, like we created
Yeah,
this
we created
policy
this
where,
policy.
okay,
about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
right. But, okay.
Was it
What,
not in the
I guess I don't want to hang her up on my displeasure with procedure. What is the appropriate forum to address how we handle it? Would it be at a policy committee meeting?
Mhm.
Okay. And then I guess the only other thing is there anything to prevent us from, if we do have an appeal, making it item 1 under new business? So like, and I don't think we're doing it on purpose, but so that she doesn't have to sit here until 9:08 when we could have got her out of here at probably 8:08. Okay, so there's a reason behind it. Okay, that's good enough. That sounds good. More of a discretion thing.
As the meeting tends to wear on, people have their discussions and hear what we're voting on and move along.
Okay,
So, and
understood.
bathroom breaks. so-
Understood.
And the person's coming before for appeal know when it will be,
Yep.
that it will be.
Yeah.
It's the same reason we don't put them on camera. or
Understood.
by
No,
notice.
that makes sense. And I was hoping there was a good reason, and there certainly is.
Yeah,
but-
like today, she would have had a bunch of fourth graders watching her.
Right.
so.
Yeah. So a motion and a support. Any further comments?
Can
Oh,
we
do I have a
ask?
motion? I do have a motion.
You do have a motion.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We're coming. Can I ask, so this is the appeal process. Are we allowed to inquire as to why it was denied originally?
No, there was no
There wasn't.
denial.
The background check coming back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
We put it through the
Yep.
iChat system. It comes out and then,
Right.
yeah.
I
Good.
did have a question and I'm sorry for dragging this out, parent A. Didn't we have, I know there was going to be discussion. I don't know if it ever made to policy committee about like that 10 years. We had talked about if something's more than 10 years old,
Yeah. well,
or am I
Did you
imagining?
specifically talk about a 10-year? I know we've talked about sending it back to policy.
Okay,
I don't know if I don't think it ever made it there.
No, no, we had 2 separate discussions on it, on kind of the same thing.
I was there, I
whether
can
we do
remember.
that, Whether we do kind of add a thing. And again, it's basically, I believe the last thing was, no, we still wanted it to go before the board.
okay,
And remember, at the same time, the state kind of changed the law on, they were automatically expunging certain things.
yes.
So then it was
Oh,
like,
that's right.
well, so that will drop off a lot, but we'll continue to do this. It's only for certain
Offenses.
offenses, and typically it's drugs or violence or things like that.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
Is there anything to prevent us from doing this in closed session?
yes.
There is. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Hearing none. Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Green. Mr. Powers,
Yes. Yes means we're approving.
Approving the appeal was the motion.
We're not saying yes to the denial. We're saying yes to approving her
Appeal.
to
Correct.
be able
The
to
motion
volunteer,
was to approve her appeal.
which means she can volunteer.
She can
Okay,
volunteer.
yes.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Knox,
Yes.
Mr. Sunnyberger,
Yes.
Ms. Berkmeyer,
Yes.
Mr. Vinatieri,
No.
Richards is a yes. Mr. Green,
No. Motion carries. Congratulations, parent A. Your request has been approved. All righty, that's my volunteer appeal. Let's move on to board comments, points of pride. Let's start with Ms. Berkmeyer.
Um, I would just like to thank all of our CTE groups for all of these generous gifts that we received, as well as Ms. Kenward and staff as well, the teachers and the staff of those programs. I know they're pretty well popular, so with the students, and they're obviously able to create nice things. So I want to thank them for all of that and for the board appreciation items and Mr. Jankowski. I also want to thank the parents of the hockey team that came to speak to us today. I know it's not easy to talk about some issues and when they become personal, but I think it's important to bring these conversations and bring them up, and so we can kind of work together for solutions that are best for all of our students. So I want to thank them for coming forward and being able to do that respectfully and be kind of willing to put themselves out there after somewhat of a traumatizing event. And that is all I have.
Mr. Richards.
Thank you, Mr. Green. The Anchor Bay Community Forum is March 10th at 6 p.m. at the high school. Following the forum will be a building tour on the construction progress at the high school. Don't miss this opportunity to stay informed and engaged in our community's future. Congratulations to Anchor Bay North Student of the Month, 6th grade Max Romer, 7th grade Gabe Shields, and 8th grade Max Steer. I'd like to thank the Anchor Bay School Link Crew that hosted a Coca Cram. Link Crew leaders helped freshmen study for midterms. Congratulations to the varsity girls basketball team and being the MAC White League champions. Awesome job. New student registration for K through 11 School of Choice for 2025-2026 school year opened on February 13th. Congratulations to the Anchor Bay dance team for taking 3rd place in Orlando at the National Dance Competition. Over 55 teams participated. Anchor Bay Softball Youth Clinic for grades 3 through 8 is Sunday, April 13th at the high school. If you're interested, reach out to Coach Downey. Big event, the senior versus staff basketball game is Tuesday, March 11th. Doors open at 6:30. This is a fundraising event for Anchor Bay scholarships for the class of 2025. Congratulations to Middle School North Student of the Month, 6th grade Madison Suchi, 7th grade Brianna Newman, and 8th grade Kendall Zergeski. The ABEA Dueling Piano Fundraiser is Friday, April 11th at Younger's Irish Tavern. For tickets, please contact Kristen Breeze. All proceeds benefit Anchor Bay scholarships. A little bit about tonight. Congratulations to senior Lily Foster from Business Management, Lily Leiden from Graphic Arts for being named Anchor Bay High School Outstanding CTE Students of the Year. They were recognized at the 35th Annual Macomb Career and Technical Education Administrators Association Award celebration. I'm not going to say that twice. Additionally, congratulations to Lily Foster, who was recipient of the MCTEAA scholarship. Anchor Bay is hiring. We're looking for custodians, substitute custodians, preschool assistants, bus drivers, paraprofessionals, and SAC assistants. Anchor Bay Middle School Baseball Camp is March 15th from 8:15 to noontime. If interested, please reach out to the athletic department. Congratulations to the Anchor Bay High School varsity wrestling team and being district champions. The 12th annual Anchor Bay Oscars are Thursday, February 27th at 7 p.m. Red carpet starts at 6:30. Tickets are $5 at the door. All proceeds will be donated to the American Cancer Society. Congratulations to Middle School North Captain of the Month, Ted Wiley. Mr. Wiley is an invaluable part of Middle School North, always going above and beyond his role as school custodian. He's been incredibly helpful with the counseling office move, tackling every task promptly and with a smile. Anchor Bay Kindergarten Readiness Night is Tuesday, March 18th at Anchor Bay High School Auditorium at 6 p.m. I'd like to thank the Anchor Bay boys and girls basketball programs that helped make the inaugural Junior Hoops program a successful event. The event was well attended and it was great to see such a large turnout. Points of pride for me will be, as Ms. Burkmeyer mentioned, having tonight's awards for the board appreciation. Although it's not expected, it's well appreciated, and thank you for all the kind gifts.
Ms. Knox?
My comments for this evening is, of course, to thank the students and the staff for going out of their way for all the school board appreciation gifts. It's probably one of my greatest honors to be able to serve on this board. Probably second behind being a mom some days. And then my point of pride is when we heard Mr. Farley this evening give us his student congress update, all of the philanthropy our students do, where it's not just about raising money for the school, but it's still a teaching moment about giving back to your fellow humans and your community. And I think it's really great that we do a lot of that here. It's not always just to support the school, but support, the Lions Club with the eyeglass collection, the quarters, things like that. So I think that's just another facet of learning that we do here that might not be noticed as learning. So kudos to everybody who gets that done and takes that extra time and effort.
Mr. Vendatelli? Mr. Powers?
Not at all. I'd like to thank all the people who addressed the board during public comments. We heard important things, preschool, safety at sporting events, and I just think it's important that people feel they can address their board and be met with an open mind and have their concerns taken seriously. And I think tonight was a great exercise in that. I think that's exactly how public comments should be. As somebody who came up through public comments and wasn't always that way, I can tell you that, and it's very refreshing, and I'm sure it's well noted in the eyes of the public how different things are than they were just a few short years ago. So thank you to all of you who met them with an open mind as well. Have a great night.
Mr. Sunnyberger?
First of all, thank you for all of the wonderful gifts that we received for board appreciation. I'd like to spend just a quick second talking about the Student of the Month breakfast at Middle School South. It was one of my favorite events every month for two reasons. One, we get to hold up our students and give recognition where recognition is due. And coming in a close second was free bacon. And I'm a little upset that I don't get the free bacon anymore. So, but go breakfast.
Well, you have an ID, so you can get into the building. They really are. All of our buildings are very welcoming. I guess I can just echo some of the sentiments. I already said it when they were here. They've stepped away. The hockey team parents that came certainly shed some light on where we may have a gap, just not in hockey, but across athletics. And I think that our superintendent has, again, some marching orders of using his team to figure out how we can make sure these things don't happen again. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate the board appreciation gifts. I will say, despite all of the awesome gifts, that I will probably dig into the apple pie on the way home. It's got to be a good 18-minute drive, as one of those parents said, and that's a long ride when you have an apple pie in the front seat. So move on to the legislative update from our superintendent.
Just quickly on the MASB conference, that's October 23rd through the 26th. That's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I don't know if we had talked before about trying to have board members take the 100 level classes. They do allow them at that point. That's a great way if you want to get started taking those 100 level classes. And so just let Sherry know if that's something you're interested in the fall. It is in Grand Traverse.
It is in Grand Traverse. That's what I thought.
Yep. Legislative update, not much has been going on because all of the main thing that's been passed now is it's the new the sick leave policy and all of that. We've been ahead of all of that. We've already moved our minimum wage, I guess, for a district is about $15 an hour. So we're ahead of that. The days will be something that we'll have to make adjustments on and how that goes into effect. So that will have to be looked at mainly with EduStaff and all that, because basically they'll end up increasing the fees because that's what it does, and we'll have to adjust all that. Otherwise tonight will be, that's the governor's state of the state. So we have a meeting tomorrow that will kind of debrief on what she kind of throws out there. For those of you last year, like we had no idea they were going to do universal preschool until they had been tossed around, and then all of a sudden there was one line in the state of the state that, hey, we're going to do universal 4-year-olds for everybody, and then that just started off a major push, and they basically got it done. It is just kind of speaking to the parent. It is in the governor's budget. If we see it in the House budget, then we will begin kind of finalizing that. The challenge is the difference in between GSRP and traditional and the different programs that we offer. If we are kind of obligated, if we take the GSRP money, to offer those programs and to fill those programs first. So it's going to be very difficult to, if you have this outpouring of people who need that, then you shift your resources towards that in order to offer that, versus you offer the traditional, which is a tuition based. And part of that is it impacts everything. It impacts compensation of the teachers. It impacts what's the state reimbursement rate and things like that. So we'll closely monitor that. And as soon as, just for the newer members, what we'll do is as soon as we get the House budget, then we'll kind of compare that together. And then we'll have a finance committee where we start talking about, okay, what are we looking at for a per pupil allotment? What are we looking at for these programs? How are we going to kind of do that based off of reading the tea leaves that come out of all of that, which should happen hopefully relatively quickly, because we want them to have, I'll tell you now, we will pass the proposed budget before the state passes their budget. So we are going to guess, and there's just no two ways around that. And we try and take educated guesses based off of all of that. And this kind of starts that process. It really comes to the main hinge point will be in May. That will be when they do the next, what's called the CREC, the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference. And so they did one in January, they were running ahead. And then in May, they'll do another one, and they'll say, okay, based off of that, this is where we really think we're going to, and we have to make decisions off of that. So then hopefully, if we're lucky, they'll at least have a draft budget out by then. But typically they don't. We have to have a budget hearing, so we do that, and then we have to pass our budget by June 30th, and we have to have it to the state by then. The state doesn't have to necessarily do that. And so once they have, so we do the best that we can, and we've been pretty good. We are abundantly, like, very conservative on what we're going to, how we're going to approach that. And then it served us well for the most part. But there are things like last year, the security money got yanked out at the per pupil increase got yanked out at the last time. Strangely, with split party control, I think you're going to have a cleaner budget process than you did when you had one party control, which is doesn't seem like it should be the case, but that's, I think, what's going to happen. So that's it for the legislative update.
I do want to dovetail on that, if I haven't made it clear, the finance committee directive to Mr. Rathbun, as well as the Superintendent Jankowski, is be conservative. He used the word guess because it kind of is a guess, but and I've said that when Mr. Randazzo has been in the crowd, that they do an excellent job of guessing, if that's the word we're going to use. And as you've seen recently, not all districts are as good as we are at guessing. And it truly is a guess. We're putting together a budget, and we don't even have budget from the state. And it happens year after year after year. There were years we didn't get it till November. And we're we're required by law to put something to them by July 1st-ish. And we don't even have our numbers. So I don't want to say a dartboard because it's a lot more calculated than that. But trust me, when you sit in the finance committee meetings and you see the spreadsheet pop up that Todd has, that's got 126 tabs on it with all of these factors and all of these different scenarios, they're following our directive of being conservative. Let's not get caught, under project. And if something comes our way we didn't expect, that's perfect. We can find, some way to give our students a little bit more of the benefit of that money. But when we sit in those finance committee meetings, like I said, Robin, Todd, and Phil do an excellent job of really underestimating what we think we're going to get, so we don't have a situation where, we're draining our fund balance down. Even if we're just break even for the year, that'd be great at this point. But again, it's been October, November, and we haven't seen numbers. So anyway, board committee update. Anybody, anything you want to share? Committee meeting attended?
No, we haven't
Superintendent?
had any since last one.
I know there's several popping up here in the next couple weeks. However, we're back pretty quickly here
2 weeks.
in 2 weeks. And then we have a 6-week hiatus because of spring break. So make sure you're looking at your calendar that you're here. And then obviously we'll be spending some time together in the near future at
Yep.
our board retreat. So I'm looking forward to that. We're finalizing the agenda. It's going to be packed, and somehow we are going to have to try to stay on task because it's tight. It'll be a working lunch with 2-minute breaks occasionally. And we'll go from there. So if there's no committee updates, nothing further from anybody, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Knox, supported by
Second.
Mr. Vinatelli. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All those opposed? It is 9:28 PM. Have a good night, guys.